Keyshawn Davis coming into this fight with Jamaine Ortiz, he gonna need a great performance. That Barenchik performance, it was against a guy who wasn't, he wasn't the best champion at the weight class at that time. Jamaine Ortiz, again, he's coming short in a lot of his big fights. But, you go in there and stop a guy like Jamaine Ortiz, that'll say a lot about you going forward. It'll really create levels between you and a lot of those guys that, people will want to see you get in there and fight. Like a Gervonta Davis. Me personally, at 140, I want to see you fight, a Richardson Hitchens, a Gary Antoine Russell before you move up to 147. But you go in there and put on a phenomenal performance against Jamaine Ortiz, you get all the credit in the world from boxing fans, because real boxing fans know Jamaine Ortiz is not a joke. Jamaine Ortiz is not a game. He bring a lot of skills to that ring. Against elite fighters, he hasn't been able to get the nod, but Keyshawn right now is in limbo. Not that many fights. Jamaine Ortiz has way more fights than this guy. And, if he can go in there and dismiss a guy like Jamaine Ortiz, it just says what level he's on, despite, anything that comes out in the headlines about him, negative. He has a chance to show the boxing world who he is fighting on this undercard. Hopefully we see him back after this performance as a main event, because Keyshawn Davis, I always have said it, is must-see TV, strong in the paint, on that inside, throwing blows. He's one of them guys that's willing to take one to give you a harder one. You see what I'm saying? And, like I always say, Jamaine Ortiz has a lot to come in this ring and show the boxing world. Again, this could be his last opportunity at a high level, right? And, I know that he's looking to maximize it. He's not going to be fighting too far from where he's from. He has the whole Caribe. He has two islas, to support him. And I know he's going to get a whole bunch of support on fight night from the community. People from Jersey, people from New York, people from Connecticut. People coming around that's from the Caribe looking to support one of their own. And the same go from Shakur. He got Boricua heritage. Them people gonna come out and show out. So that make it even more impressive if Keyshawn Davis can go from a main event fighter to a co-main event fighter back to a main event fighter. I think it's gonna be a tough fight. Because Jamaine Ortiz, he's been in there with a lot of guys. So he knows how to survive. So that's why I would give Keyshawn even more credit. You able to stop a guy like Jamaine Ortiz late. Again, Jamaine Ortiz not a slouch. If anybody gets on here and say that Jamaine Ortiz ain't a worthy opponent, that guy's not this, that they don't know boxing. He's able to box. He's able to push the pace, and he's able to hurt guys too. Don't get it mistaken. He's got some knockout power too. And like I said before, Keyshawn Davis is just one of those guys. He has everything it takes to be a generational talent. And we'll see it in this fight. He has everything that you need to become a top 5, top 10 fighter in the sport of boxing. And, I'm looking forward to seeing him go in there and display it on fight night. It's going to be a tough fight for both of these guys. I know that both of these guys is working hard, when they training camp, getting ready for each other. But the winner of this fight, it's going to say a lot about that fighter, especially in the fashion that they win.